Hey guys, so it's just after 8 a.m. It's a Monday morning, nice and sunny out, and I'm hoping to get out and do some plein air painting. But I've kind of been on a roll with the daily videos here, so I thought I'd keep it going as long as possible. I thought today's video would just be a quick response to a question I got on the last, or comment I got on the last video, which was what got me into plein air painting and what did I do before that. So I'll start with what got me into plein air painting. I started painting in 2003, August 2003, and most of the books that I read, because I learned just from books and a few videos that I took out from the library, and there seemed to be this common denominator. All the different books recommended getting outdoors and painting from life as much as possible. So I was mostly interested in landscape painting, so it made sense that I would go out and paint from the landscape. And there was a couple books in particular. There's an author from back east, from Gloucester, named Emil Groupe, and he had some books that he wrote in the 70s, and I can't remember the titles, but the last name is Gruppe, and first name Emil. And I've heard his name pronounced Groupe or Groupie as well, so I'm not sure which way to pronounce it. But anyway, these books are out of print, but if you can find them in the library or something, they're really enjoyable. And I'd have to go back and read them again because it's been a while. But I really enjoyed reading those. He has like kind of a flamboyant personality, and there was a lot of good information in those books. But he was a plein air painter, and really that, he was convinced that was the only way to paint. So so I decided I would get out and paint. So I bought a French box easel, like a full box easel, a Julian full box easel, and then and I got out there and painted. In fact, I have my first plein air painting is right here. So if you can see that, this was from let's see, March 7th of 2004, and it's like an 18 by 20, no, it's a 14 by 18, which I stretched myself actually. I just noticed on the back that I kind of stretched that one myself. So so yeah, I went out and I painted on location, starting about after 6 months of painting in the studio from photographs. I was realizing that my paintings weren't really turning out the way I wanted them to, so after, I needed more information, so I went to the library and I got books about it. And like I said, most of the books encouraged you to get outdoors and paint from life, so that's what I did. And when I first went out painting, I started looking around for places that were really, I was sort of self-conscious about setting up my stuff in public. And so the first priority, in fact, like, I wasn't really necessarily interested in like grassy hills like in this painting. I was more interested in going to a place where no one was going to see me, where I could just kind of set up, go through the procedure of actually completing a painting, regardless of what it was, what the painting was of. I just felt like that would be my first step. Just get outdoors and just, learn how my equipment works and actually complete a painting and come home. And then, regardless of how it came out, that would be, it was like success, for step one. So So I went and I set up, in this particular case, I went over to Stage Road, which is like an old stagecoach road leading into San Gregorio on the coast. And it was like early Sunday morning, and so I went out there, and I know I've told this story before, but it was like I found a place that was like very remote and very, quiet. And so I got set up and I started painting, and then all of a sudden a bike came riding by. I was kind of on a hill, the bike came riding up the hill and past me, and then another, and then like a pack of 20, and then a pack of like 100. And, or more. I mean, it just seemed like this non-stop stream of bicyclists like riding right past me in my easel. So, and I think even one guy like yelled out like, "Hey, look, it's Van Gogh," or something, and a few people had a good laugh at my expense, whatever. But I was very self-conscious, but in some ways I guess that was a good experience, because here I was trying to hide, and my greatest fear actually was realized in that moment, when all those people rode by and heckled me. I don't think I've ever, even to this day, of all the plein air painting, I've never encountered that many people seeing me at my easel. So in the beginning it was that was kind of the biggest thing to overcome. Even more so than just being overwhelmed by the light and trying to compose things and all the other plein air challenges. So anyway, but that's what got me into plein air painting, is those books that suggested that was a way to to improve your painting skills. And I also had a book I liked Edward Hopper's paintings, and I was actually more into his watercolors, surprisingly. I liked his oil paintings too, and I wanted to get a book of his oil paintings, and I think I ended up getting the watercolor book instead because the oil painting was out of stock and they didn't know when they'd get it. So anyway, I got the watercolor one, and it turned out I'm really happy I did. There's a lot of great. He did like plein air water painting. He did plein air watercolor paintings. I don't think he did a lot of oil plein air except when he was in his younger years, like going to Maine and stuff like that. But he did a lot of watercolor. And they're great, and I don't think maybe a lot of people don't see those. They don't get as much attention. But anyhow, look for those. The watercolor, Edward Hopper's watercolors, really good. Anyhow, so I started painting outdoors, and after a while, I did start noticing some improvement for sure. But at first, it was overwhelming, and I was also, like I said, self-conscious about setting up. I mean, now it's funny. Now I don't even think about it, even in a crowded place. I suppose there'd still be places where I'd be a little self-conscious. Like if I was going to go down to Market Street in San Francisco and set up like down there where there's just constant traffic on a sidewalk, that might make me a little self-conscious. But, it might be a good challenge for me, actually. But I set up on city streets all the time, and on California Street, I don't know if you saw the one where I set up on a cable car stop. That's pretty busy and pretty visible, and that doesn't bother me. And I realize that a lot of people, when they see your paintings, like even now, even a painting that ends up really turning out well, there's the whole developmental stage where I'm just sort of blocking in and things are kind of a mess. And I realize that people, when they see those, when they walk by, in fact, I can tell, we'll make eye contact or smile, and you can sort of see them looking at the painting going, just like, wow, poor guy, or whatever, but I don't worry about it now because I realize, they don't understand. Most people don't understand the painting process, which is just like, for me anyway, just get all the information on there and then just refine it. So a lot of times it can kind of be a mess as I'm developing the painting. So I don't get self-conscious about it anymore. One nice thing to do is like I do when the painting's almost finished and I'm doing the process of just walking back and forth and putting finishing touches and all that. That's a stage of the painting that then I do enjoy talking to people because I'm just, and the painting's almost finished, and that's when people are most likely to come up. They'll see the painting, and if it looks good or almost finished, then they get it, so they'll walk up and maybe say something at that point. And so even if you're a beginner painter, people don't know. It could just be there's just no need to be self-conscious about it. But I do understand because I've been there. So anyway, so that's kind of how I got into plein air painting. And then what I did before plein air painting, I'm assuming the question was regarding like career and stuff. And I always had jobs that allowed me to do creative things. So I worked for 15 years as a courier in San Francisco for DHL, which is kind of like FedEx. And I drove a van. I had a small area south of Market in San Francisco, and so I didn't do a lot of driving. I would drive to my area, and then I would deliver. I would walk. Mostly it was a lot of walking. I think I walked over 3 miles a day. They put a pedometer on all of us couriers to see how far we walked. So I think I was over 3 miles per morning. And I really liked getting out early and just sort of going out and delivering the mail, so to speak, and seeing people, and often would take pictures and paint from it later because, you know, the city is very inspiring. So so that was 15 years, and I started painting though only while I was working there. I was mostly playing in bands. I lived in San Francisco and all through my 20s and wrote music and played in bands, and that was kind of my first thing before I even thought about painting. You know, when I did start painting, this schedule that I had for DHL, which was 7 a.m. to 1 p.m., which was great because it allowed, like I said, it was a job I didn't take home with me. It was decent pay, I had vacation, I had healthcare, all that stuff. So it was really good for playing music. I mean, if I had a late night, it could be tough because having to get up and start at 7 a.m. could be challenging, but I could always get home and take a nap after lunch, which I usually did. And then after that, I could, you know, play music, or when I started painting, it was great. I could go out and paint. So I did that for 15 years. And then, but then they went union, and it became mandatory to do at least 4 10-hour days. And that was just too much. And my daughter was young. She was 2 years old, I think, at that point. And, you know, it was great to be able to like get off at 1 p.m., go pick her up at daycare, and then have her for the rest of the day until her mom got home. I mean, it was good for everything, just having those hours. So when they went union and I had to work 10-hour days, I was like, no way, I can't do this because I want to spend the time with my kid, and I, you know, have this sort of lifestyle that I've been doing for 15 years, and I didn't want to give that up. So fortunately, I quit that job, but there was a severance package which allowed me, you know, covered my expenses for 3 months, I figured. So I thought, you know what, I'll just go for it as a painter. I'm going to go for it. So, you know, I would paint probably, I think during that period of time, I painted every day. But I realized pretty quickly, being out there every day, that I was not ready for this. I'd only been painting at that time for a year, because I quit that job in 2004 and I started painting in 2003. So I'd been just painting a year, and it was very unrealistic to think, okay, after painting a year, I'm going to go for it and actually make a living doing this. And I had no idea what that entailed. I didn't have any idea of what it took to be a professional painter, or where I'd even sell the work. The internet was just getting rolling at that point. So there wasn't a lot of things developed on there for art as far as I remember. At least I didn't know about them. So it was pretty premature for me to think I was going to make a living. So anyway, I remember one time being sort of discouraged. I'm out there painting, you know, plein air painting, and beautiful day, but my painting's not turning out. I'm realizing that this is not a realistic plan. And I just happened to get a call from an old friend I hadn't talked to in a long time. Turns out he's a contractor, and he does bathroom and kitchen remodels, and asked if I'd be willing to come and work several days a week for him doing that. And the timing was really good. So, and the pay was decent too. And so I said, yeah. And so I did. I ended up working for him for 3 years, and I'd work Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and similar hours. I think I'd work either like around 8 a.m. to about, you know, maybe 1 or 2 in the afternoon, something like that. And the pay was a little better actually than the courier job, so I could work less hours and make similar money. So I did that for 3 years, working Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then that gave me Tuesdays and Thursdays to go out and paint. And I had a lot of time with my young daughter, so I still could go pick her up at daycare, and then I had the afternoon with her. And I remember even like taking her to the playground and stuff. Painting was always on my mind. I was really excited about it, really passionate about trying to get better. And so I had a little color isolator, which is like a piece of cardboard with holes punched in it. And I remember sitting, you know, she'd be playing on the playground and stuff. You know, I would interact with her too, but there was a lot of times when she'd just be out there meeting with the kids and playing and stuff, and there was that time sitting, just watching her and being there, you know, that everything, if you've got kids, you know, just everything slows way down. So anyway, I was sitting there, and I had my color isolator, and I would sit and I would look, and I would like hold it up to a tree, and I would just hold it, you know, anything, and I would try to think, how would I mix this color? What color is that? How would I mix that, you know? And it just allowed me to be kind of in that space mentally, the creative space, even, when I was like doing, slowing down and spending time, at the playground or whatever. So, and I would use a compositional thing too. I had my little viewfinder and I'd have that with me too. I just put them both in my wallet, and then I could, anytime there was downtime, I would just kind of experiment just with compositions. I suppose I could have had a little sketch pad and done that too, but I never did. So anyway, that was for a while. I did those jobs, the construction job. That lasted about 3 years, and then he decided to do something. The contractor friend decided to do something different, and then I ended up doing electrical work. When I was working with the contractor, we did everything: plumbing, framing, sheetrock, electrical work, everything. So I had kind of a basic knowledge of all kinds of building things, all the kind of different tasks that go into construction. And so when he decided to do another, he stopped contracting for a while, and I had to find another job. And it turned out my mom's husband is he's a electrical contractor, and he was like, oh, I could use help, and you have basic knowledge, that's cool. So I worked with him for 5 years, I think. Same schedule. I said, hey, I want to keep my schedule Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so I have time with my daughter, and also, I can paint, and that money was even better. So that was good. So I worked as an electrician for 5 years, and but it was really demanding and definitely grueling work, especially like running wire in attics and under houses and stuff like that, and constantly thinking, oh man, I wish I could just paint full time. A lot of times, a day after a tough job, you'd just be tired and wouldn't want to I didn't feel like, oh, it's nice to have a day off. I'll go do some tasks or whatever, take care of some stuff around the house, but it was harder to find motivation sometimes to get out there and paint. Anyway, so after 5 years of doing that, I, was still painting 2 days a week as much as possible and on weekends. And then these opportunities presented themselves, and I had a couple shows that I could participate in. This would have been after painting for like probably, 10 years. So I finally decided, okay, I got to stop working the electrical job and just paint full time, and I did, and so I'm still here. I'm still here. It's been 5 years painting full time. So anyway, but those jobs, I find all of the jobs that I had in the past, I think really helped in a way, for what I'm doing now. It's like, the construction jobs really helped in putting together shows. Like, in a lot of ways, putting together a big show is like a construction job. And especially for me, because I have, because I'm building the frames and everything, so it's literally a construction job. But it's also this idea of like, kind of, having this large project that can seem overwhelming, and kind of organizing it and putting it all together and seeing it through. There's a big similarity between doing a big show and doing a construction job. So I find that was helpful. And then and being a musician and playing in bands and all that stuff was really helpful for becoming a painter too. Because the way I started, I learned like most musicians. I just learned from listening to records and figuring out songs, and just imitating what I was hearing. So when I started painting, I already had the confidence that, oh, I can figure this out. It's like reverse engineering kind of is what you do. You look at something and you figure out how it was done. Like with music, would be listening to something over and over again and trying to figure out how to play it and how to, or how to sing it or whatever. So that process in music helped me with having that experience and the confidence that, hey, I learned how to play guitar without, just figured it out on my own, and learned how to sing and write songs and all that stuff, which most musicians do. It's not like, it's not like the Beatles or whatever, the Rolling Stones went to school to learn how to do what they do. You figure out from friends, from listening to records, from just experience. So I knew that was the way to go. And I feel like the one difference, like, some people may say, oh, well, you started painting late. I started at the age of 38 with no experience. But I knew that it wasn't like, the reason that older people don't tend to learn things the way young people do is because it's not because there's any diminished capacity for learning. It's just, or at least this is my feeling about it, it's just that when you get older, you just don't have the time the way kids can focus on stuff. That's why I like tell my daughter, and that's one advice I would have, that's one bit of advice I'd have for younger people is like, take this time that you have and just learn something, It's like, it's fun to party and all that, I totally get it, but like, you'll never get that time back, because like once you're in your 20s and you start working and everything, it's like good luck. So it's like, figure out, spend that time. And most kids these days, I could get into a rant on this, but it's like most kids these days don't have the time like to really, I know my daughter was that way. It was just like school was so demanding and she really wanted to do well, and so and she's a hard worker, and I don't know, I mean, I know some of you have come from her channel. She has a YouTube channel, Emil Chamberlain, you could check it out, but she's a hard worker, and but I remember talking to her and she was kind of stressed out about like school and everything, and I was like, hey, we're almost at the summer, it was the end of her sophomore year, and I was like, why don't you just take some time, like don't worry about school, don't worry about college. I knew she was going to be fine regardless of what she did, but I was like, just take the time this summer to just kind of figure out like, what are you interested in, and it turns out she was interested in making YouTube videos and has done very well at it. But anyhow, we both started our channel about the same time. So actually I had mine much longer, but it had set, I had videos that I put on a long time ago, but nothing much happened with them for a while. I kind of just stopped and whatever. So we both started back at the same time. Anyhow, my point is that you have this time when you're younger to invest in learning something, and I felt like if I could carve out a bit of time for myself, even though I was older, I was like, I could learn this, I could learn, I could become, it's not too late, And that's really true, because here I am, it's 15 years later, but I'm painting full time, and I feel like I'm still growing and learning, and age has nothing to do with it. In fact, I think in a lot of ways, if you have the time and you're older and you have the motivation, I think I have more focus and discipline than I had when I was younger. But anyhow, so all of those experiences that I had, whether it be being a musician and the construction jobs I had, I think they all really went into, they kind of helped me with, the painting and getting into painting and learning how to paint. All of that stuff, all the stuff you do, all your previous experiences, they help out in whatever it is you're currently involved in. Anyhow, hopefully that wasn't too rambling of an answer to the question. But anyhow, so that's how I got started plein air painting. It's sort of a little look into what I did before I was a full-time painter. So anyway, so thank you guys for hanging out and watching this, and I'm going to go out now and do a plein air adventure, and I'm going to film that and stuff. I'm not sure where I'll go, but it's a beautiful day out, and probably head to the coast. I'm also thinking of maybe trying to paint in a redwood forest, so I might go explore a redwood forest too today a little bit and see if there's any painting potential there. So that video will be out on probably Wednesday or Thursday of this week, so we'll see how long I can keep this daily thing going. Anyhow, so if you have any ideas for like sit-down videos like this, any questions or whatever, you can put them in the comments and I'll see if I can make a video about it. But anyhow, as usual, thank you guys for hanging out, and I will see you in the next video.